Imagine being a normal guy and then being reborn overnight as a mystical sword that ends up in the hands of a cat girl. Well, that's what happened to the main character of this story, so stay tuned as I tell you how it goes. It all starts when we see the main character, who seems to be an ordinary guy, lose his life. Subsequently, we find out that he was expecting to reincarnate as one of those Isekai heroes, but ended up being the sword of a girl with cat ears. This is unexpected. So, he tells us how it all began before meeting the girl. We see a past event where the main character opens his eyes and realizes he is a sword and a stone, which naturally surprises him. Then a voice tells him to prepare himself for a long journey. However, the main character decides to think that the voice was a product of his mind. He then wonders if he has special abilities, as he often sees in fantasy stories, and luckily he does. He opens a special menu and discovers several abilities, including telekinesis. When he checks his base level, he realizes he is a legendary sword for a future hero. However, soon goblins appear to do bad things and try to remove him from the stone, but since they can't, they end up spitting on him. The main character gets angry and uses his telekinesis ability to move on his own and kill the creatures who lose their lives when their core, in this case a kind of crystal, is destroyed. After doing this, he gains experience and new qualities. With this in mind, the main character, who by the way is called Shisho, sets a goal to collect skills by defeating monsters to become the best sword for his future bearer. On the other hand, we see the cat girl from before, who seems to be a slave treated in the worst way. However, she seems to maintain her hope of escaping and gaining power or magic from somewhere. Meanwhile, the main character, who is the sword, continues to face monsters and gains a new ability called levitation, which, combined with telekinesis, allows him to move at great speed as if he were an aerial vehicle. After repeating the same thing, he activates a new function that allows him to self-evolve. However, Shisho wants more skills, so he goes into the lair of some goblins and defeats their king and the wizard, which allows him to gain several skills, including fire magic. After causing a massacre, he leaves the cave, and while reviewing his new statistics, he realizes that when his bearer equips him, they will automatically get a power boost, which Shisho finds exciting. In a change of scene, we see a man mistreating a slave girl, so the cat girl from before intervenes to help her. However, the man uses a collar to incapacitate her, and as punishment for her rebellion, he leaves her without food the next day. The same man then makes her carry a heavy box while insulting her. So, the girl gets angry and tries to attack him, but the man uses the collar to immobilize her again, and as he steps on her head, he continues to insult her. While traveling with the other slaves, she tells herself that she must gain power. At the same time, Shisho realizes that the farther he is from the starting point, the stronger the monsters are. However, after defeating a small dragon, Shisho gains enough experience to face a more powerful monster. With this in mind, he fights against a slime monster, whom he manages to defeat by piercing its body and splitting its crystal core, which naturally raises his statistics. After this, he fights against an extremely powerful snake, with the same result. However, this time, he learns a technique to create a double of his human body. Although the level of this technique is very low, his clone does not last long and also appears without clothes. Subsequently, Shisho continues to defeat more monsters, including an armored turtle and a beast similar to a tiger but much larger. This marks the end of the first 5 levels he had to pass, so he sets out to explore further. However, he gets trapped in a kind of magical mud that absorbs his energy and the techniques he uses, so he can't get out since then. Days pass, and the main character, again the sword, becomes desperate as nobody appears. In the midst of this, he laments that he won't be able to test all his abilities. On the other hand, we see the carriage where the cat girl from before is located being attacked by a giant pig, who destroys the vehicle and kills the abuser. As a result, her collar loses its effect, allowing her to fight the bear. However, despite the blow she received, the bear still manages to overpower her. Nevertheless, she quickly finds Shisho, who communicates with her telepathically and urges her to take him. She then pulls him out of the magical mud and equips him, giving the cat girl a power boost. With this new strength, she manages to defeat the giant bear. At that moment, she plans to leave him where she found him, but she is quickly interrupted by another man who has the remote control for her collar. Shisho uses his powers to break the man's neck and destroy the remote control with his fire powers. Later, he offers to be her sword, which she accepts despite the danger. This surprises Shishu, who notices that the girl is very calm despite everything she has just experienced. He attributes this to her losing sensitivity due to her lifestyle. After this, we return to the present, where we see both of them in a cart. Shishu says that his goal is to help Fran become stronger and evolve, as that is what the girl desires the most. Later, Shisho explains that the Beastman race has a special skill that allows them to evolve when they reach the maximum level of their skills. However, achieving this is extremely difficult, to the point that Fran's parents lost their lives while seeking it. Now she wants to fulfill the goal her parents left as a legacy. Shishu says that she is incredibly capable of learning things quickly, although the thing she likes the most is cleaning him every time he gets dirty. For this reason, Shisho decides to do everything in his power to help her. In the middle of this, she senses something and quickly heads to see what is happening. While Shishu doesn't quite understand, they see some goblins attacking the cargo of a hairy old man. I think goblins are the only monsters in this anime. Just when things get complicated, Fran appears to end several creatures, and Shishu helps using one of his abilities, which allows him to create a sword of light and throw it on his own. When Fran sees this, she mentions that it is very useful, and that they will use it later. After this, the warrior from the carriage thanks them, and Fran offers her protection until they leave the area, to which the young fighter gladly accepts, unlike the old man, who seems to be angry at the presence of the cat girl. After this, we see the girl advancing in the cart with the warrior, who tells her that in the last month, the number of creatures near the town has increased, because it is said that the strong monsters started fighting in the Marrow Plains, and the weaker creatures had to leave. When Shishu hears this, he realizes that it is because of him, and the place called Marrow Plains was where he appeared. The warrior explains that in that place, there is a beast monster similar to a tiger called Fenril. When Shisho hears this, he realizes that he is referring to the beast he eliminated before. Later, the man praises the girl for her skills, as she has defeated the goblins effortlessly, adding that she must be rank E. However, Fran doesn't quite understand and asks about it. The man explains that there are several levels to classify the danger of creatures, and just like them, warriors also have ranks that range from G to S, with S being the highest. He adds that among the rank A, the most famous are Farl and Amanda. When the little cat girl hears this, she gets excited and says she wants to be an adventurer, to which the man tells her that she just has to sign up at a guild to do so. On the other hand, we see the old man grumbling when he hears this. In this case, Shisho realizes this. After traveling, they arrive at the town of Alessa, which excites Shishu, who quickly looks at the swords of the adventurers and realizes that some have more attack power than him, shattering his self-esteem as a powerful sword. However, Fran tries to comfort him, saying that he has special abilities that have helped them. Fortunately, that works. Later, we see the receptionist of the guild wishing death upon all the mercenaries in the area, but quickly tries to keep calm. In the midst of this, Fran appears, saying she wants to be an adventurer. Therefore, the receptionist warns her that she must go through a process, but if she gets injured or loses her life, the establishment will not be responsible. Fran has no problems with this, which causes the receptionist, Nell, to sigh and guide her to the test area. Then they meet a being of the Sunny race, which are demon-like people, and this being is the examiner named Donadin. Without much ado, the battle begins, and Fran has a difficult time confronting the giant. Therefore, Shishu activates one of his special abilities, which allows him to increase the girl's defense, attack, and speed for a few minutes. In this way, Fran was able to injure her opponent. However, he tells her that she still has a long way to go and begins to heal her wounds. Shishu uses this distraction to unleash his magical powers, with which he subdues the giant with energy hands. He then attacks him with a fiery blast and allows Fran to deliver the final blow with his sword. And because of all of that, Donadin is shot out of the building and ends up opening a large hole in the wall. After seeing this, Nell is surprised and says that he didn't see such skills even in advanced adventurers, which leads the girl to ask if she approved. It is then that Donadin pulls his hand out of the rubble and, as best he can, he says that yes. In this way, everyone goes to the guild director's office, who asks the little girl how she can use advanced magic despite her rank. At that moment, she remembers the words Shishu had told her. So Fran refuses to say it, and it is then that the director, who by the way is named Client, uses his powers to analyze her, but Shishu counters it with another ability which surprises the elf. However, she decides to keep her adventurer card since she feels no malicious intent. In this way, they head to a place where there is a magic rock that will tell her what kind of adventurer she can be. But Nell is surprised by the enormous number of options. Nevertheless, Fran decides to choose the Sword Mage class, so she gets her card and officially becomes an adventurer. After that, the girl asks about accommodation, but first sells a large number of low-level items that she takes from her magic bag. After evaluating the value of all these things, the girl receives more than 190,000 gold pieces, which naturally surprises Shishu. After presenting herself to him, the girl decides to look for accommodation. However, those mercenaries stop her and want to take her bag of gold, claiming that she surely cheated because they do not receive as much for the same objects. It is then that Nell intervenes and explains to them that if they want to sell monster objects, they must be careful not to damage them, as it lowers their value. After saying this, she says aloud that without a doubt, the mercenaries must lose their lives, which naturally starts a dispute that is resolved by Fran, who without Shishu's help, manages to defeat them all. Subsequently, she receives praise from Nell, who quickly teaches the bandits a lesson, while the girl sets out to find an inn as well as armor. In the midst of this, an old man who appears to be a blacksmith notices that Fran's sword has intelligence. Later, we see that the girl begins to walk around the city and gets excited about things she didn't know before. They think about the need for armor now that she is an adventurer. It is then that the bearded man from before appears, who is a dwarf blacksmith, and offers to give her armor after analyzing the qualities of Shishu, and Fran decide to follow him. On the way, some guys call the bearded man by his name, which would be Garrus. When they arrive at his shop, we see that the girl gets very good armor, so she gets excited and announces that she achieved another goal. However, she becomes alert when Garrus mentions that the sword she has is intelligent. After this, Shishu asks himself how the old man discovered that even the guild director couldn't. So the old man comments that he has a divine blessing that allows him to see all the special abilities of weapons. After this, he explains that without a doubt, Shisho is a powerful sword. However, Shishu does not fully believe it, since throughout his stay in the village, he saw swords with more power. Nevertheless, Garrus decides to explain what he means by showing him an example, and, with this in mind, takes a sword with a lot of attack power and tells the girl to use Shishu to hit it, but not before passing some energy to it. After doing this and covering Shishu's blade with his magic, Fran ends up breaking that powerful sword. In this way, the bearded man explains that the attack power can increase depending on how much energy from its bearer a weapon can receive. In this case, Shisho has a rank A, so it could even reach an attack power of 2,000 without problems. As one would expect, this surprises Shishu. After this, the old man asks him if it knows its creator, but it replies that it does not, as it simply appeared on a rock. The bearded man mentions a legendary sword called Ignis, although he does not have much information about it. After settling that topic, Shishu asks the old man to create a sheath for him, to which Garrus agrees in exchange for several level C and B items of good quality. Later, Fran decides to buy suitable clothes for her, and thanks to a saleswoman, they get them without problems. After that, they go to a kitchenware store and meet the owner of the place, who used to be an adventurer. When buying everything they needed, they stayed at an inn using the guild card. When Fran sees her room, she gets very excited about sleeping in such a comfortable place, which makes her companion Shisho to think that maybe he reincarnated as a sword to help her. The next day, the party decides to cook something using their powers. They make fried puyo with ingredients from another world. After eating, they discuss the upcoming missions, but Fran falls asleep. Shisho lets her rest and decides to repair the weapons with the blacksmith because they will soon enter a dungeon to eliminate the goblins. This flashback shows how Fran and Shishu found the goblins' lair, and with the help of other adventurers defeated them, turning the lair into a dungeon. Back in the present, the blacksmith is happy about Fran's promotion, and she asks about the dungeons. He explains that dungeons are places created by the Chaos God, each with a core. The creature closest to the core gains incredible power and becomes the boss, capable of controlling the dungeon. However, dungeons are not invincible, and brave adventurers can obtain unimaginable treasures by overcoming their challenges. The blacksmith gives Fran armor and prepares a sheath for Shisho before they enter the dungeon to exterminate goblins. They meet outside the inn, where a woman explains that the inn is related to the guild, allowing the receptionists to use the bathroom. They discuss Fran's battle against the zombie horde and the appearance of the new dungeon, which is a nuisance. The woman mentions that the chaos god loves mischief, prompting Fran to ask about the gods of their world. The story goes that in the beginning, there were 10 main gods who created the universe. The god of the underworld established the laws, and 78 minor gods made everything work. However, the chaos god, with equal or greater power, aims to help living beings improve by gaining power through challenges. Fran learns about the chaos god's intention to help living beings improve through challenges. She then asks about a god of war, and she learns that there was one, but he became greedy and fought the other gods, leading to his brutal extermination. His parts were sealed around the world, but they later released and created goblins, orcs, and other creatures. The next day, Fran and her companion go to the blacksmith, who shows them a sheath for the Shishu. He is excited because it looks cool and has a mechanism for unsheathing using telekinesis. After wishing them luck, the blacksmith bids them farewell. At the dungeon entrance, Donadrin gives instructions, but is interrupted by high-level monsters attacking. The battle begins abruptly, and several warriors die. However, the goblins avoid Fran because she has gained the title of Goblin Slayer after defeating over 100 goblins. She helps a comrade by defeating a giant goblin, and then enters the dungeon, using an advanced technique to overcome the blocked entrance. Inside, they face more challenges and encounter a high-level monster summoned by the dungeon's leader. Donadrin and his soldiers join the fight, and Fran uses a spell bot from a magic store to escape if necessary. She focuses on eliminating the most powerful monsters while leaving the rest to Donadrin's soldiers. They encounter a large horde of goblins, and Shisho uses his fire magic to destroy them. They are then led to the goblin leaders, whom they defeat with a tactical approach. They find a large door, behind which they sense a formidable presence. Preparing for what's inside, they produce power-enhancing spells. Shisho promises Fran curry if she conquers the dungeon, which excites her. They face a demon of rank B, who acknowledges Fran's strength for reaching him. They also discover that the dungeon boss is a talking goblin guarding the core. Despite the goblin boss being weak, he is cunning and desires to conquer the human world. He curses Fran for defeating his strongest soldiers. The battle begins, and Fran struggles to stop the demon's attacks, but she manages to keep the fight relatively even. The demon cuts off Fran's hands, but she quickly heals herself using a technique she learned. The demon is surprised and finds the battle interesting. Fran struggles to land any hits as the demon teleports invisibly. Shisho notices that the demon uses Fran's shadow to move and predicts its movements. Fran manages to damage the demon's chest, but it counterattacks. The demon has a special ability to steal Fran's sword skills. However, since Shisho shares his stats with Fran, the ability doesn't work. The battle continues, and Fran decides to stay and defeat the demon to enjoy the curry Shisho promised her. She fights using only her sword skills and speed, impressing the demon with her abilities. The demon tries to use a special ability to take her skills but fails. They discover that if the dungeon boss dies, the dungeon will collapse. Fran and Shisho attack together, and despite the demon protecting the boss, they defeat it. However, Shisho loses his strength and breaks, making Fran sad. She soon learns that Shisho can regenerate using monster crystals he collects. Fran stops the boss goblin from summoning a stronger monster and defeats it with a single blow, destroying the dungeon core. The other adventurers congratulate her, but Donadrin scolds her for not listening. They return home, and Fran is excited to try the curry. And this was the first part of the story, guys. I hope you like it. Please share with me your thoughts in the comments section. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. Peace.